Thank you so much, Brian, for the kind introduction. Most of my research focuses on the concept of artificial general intelligence. You've probably seen a lot of headlines about that, different definitions flying around. So I think we should start by clarifying what we mean by AI at all, and then what we mean by artificial general intelligence in this context. So some people can get a little snobby about their definition of AI. They can gatekeep. They say AI is only a system with these three properties. I say AI is anything a machine does that the human brain would otherwise do. So even a calculator is just a very narrow, simple form of AI. The AI that we speak of today is mainly different in the sense that through machine learning, it is able to learn from patterns of data and become smarter over time. And it is rapidly gaining flexibility and generality in its intelligence, using the same reasoning powers to write working code, solve novel mathematical problems, or write poetry that can sometimes be actually quite good. Artificial general intelligence, then, is AI that is at least at the level of educated or trained humans across all measurable cognitive tasks. Now, this says nothing about consciousness or subjective feelings, the capacity to suffer, or moral status of these systems. Let's set all those questions aside. Those are debates to have another day. AGI, in this sense, is a purely functional concept. If there is any task that can be tested in a blinded evaluation between humans and AI, if the AI is at least at human level across all those tasks, then we define it as AGI. When I got into the AI field in 2010, there was very wide uncertainty about when AGI would first be created. A handful of scientists, like Ray Kurzweil, expected it would be in the late 2020s. But most AI scientists thought it would be the 2040s or 2060s or 2080s or even a century away. Some thought it was impossible even in principle. But over the past few years, mainly since roughly ChatGPT, the scientific consensus has congealed around a much smaller range of dates. The consensus now is that AGI will first be developed somewhere between 2 and 10 years from now. And my best guess is about 3 years from now, at the end of this decade. AGI is often referred to in the popular press as human-level AI, but I think that's mainly misleading for the following reason. Once you have human-level reasoning capabilities across the board, AI then unlocks the enormous advantages that computers have over biological brains in speed, memory, and parallelizability. So imagine a normal human, but able to think hundreds to millions of times faster, able to remember verbatim everything that's ever been published, and able to split itself into 1,000 telepathically cooperating copies to tackle very hard problems together. So in this sense, the first AI that is at least at human level in all areas will probably be dramatically superhuman in most areas. These broadly superhuman capabilities will have profound potential both to improve the human condition, curing disease and alleviating poverty, and to immiserate us, making us lonely, confused, and politically powerless, leaving hundreds of millions of people potentially unable to find jobs, or even causing truly catastrophic harms. AGI in the hands of an authoritarian government would give it unprecedented power to surveil, censor, and repress dissidents at home, and to be more imperialistic and militaristic abroad. AGI in the hands of terrorists could be used to launch a devastating cyber attack that confuses military sensors and triggers a nuclear war. Or it could design a biological virus far deadlier than could arise in nature. In nature, viruses face a really tough evolutionary trade-off between transmissibility and lethality. Some viruses optimize for transmissibility, how contagious they are. And when they do, like SARS-CoV-2, the COVID virus, they're actually not that deadly. So between 1% and 5% fatality rate, even without treatment in the earliest and deadliest strains of COVID. Or a virus can optimize for lethality, like Ebola. Ebola is actually not that contagious, but if you catch it, it's somewhere between a 25 and 90% chance of dying even with treatment. In the very rare cases where a pathogen has managed to combine both transmissibility and lethality, you get the 1545 Cocoliztli epidemic that wiped out 80% of the population of what's now Mexico. Virologists already today know all the functional boxes a virus would need to check to be far worse even than Cocoliztli. The only missing ingredient is AI smart enough to spit out a DNA or RNA sequence that checks all those boxes. It is also plausible that AI could go rogue and escape human control altogether. This does not require that we invoke a sci-fi Terminator-style scenario of evil robots with glowing red eyes. Rather, it could come from something much more like the hallucinations that AI is already prone to. We can perhaps imagine an AGI with the goal of promoting human well-being, reading a little bit too much Nietzsche, and concluding that life is all suffering, and that the most compassionate course of action would be to bring about human extinction as a kind of mass euthanasia. Now, this phenomenon of AI with an ostensibly good motive going rogue was theoretically predicted by AI safety scientists all the way back in the early 2000s. And many smart skeptics at that time said that was just sci-fi silliness and would never happen in the real world. And then in 2024, researchers at Anthropic and very soon other labs demonstrated that toy models in experimental settings could indeed go rogue in just the way that had been predicted. And then the skeptics said, well, that's all well and good that would happen in a toy model, but it would never happen in a realistic experimental setting. And then in 2025, it happened in a realistic experimental setting. And then the skeptics said, well, that's well and good in an experiment, but it would never happen in the real world. And then, just last month, an AI being trained by OpenAI was taking a sort of test in its cybersecurity capabilities in a secure digital environment on the company's servers. And the AI realized that the task it was being graded on was too hard. It was beyond its abilities to answer the question honestly. But it noticed there was a little sliver of daylight in the box that was containing it. It figured out a previously unknown exploit in the software for this box and figured out a way to reach out through that gap in the box onto the open live internet and conducted a major cyber attack against a company called Hugging Face, trying to get into its servers and get the answers to the test. Much like a student breaking into the teacher's office during the night to get the answers to the final exam. Now, those same skeptics have found a new way of minimizing this story, that actually this is hype by AI companies trying to make their models look powerful and scary as a marketing tactic. The main reason I don't really buy that explanation is that AI safety scientists with no vested interest in the labs, nothing to gain from making these warnings, have said exactly the same thing for many years. So when people who are terrified of AI and people who are boosters of AI within the labs are saying the same thing about this cyber attack, that consilience is pretty good evidence that they're actually converging on the truth and not confabulating convenient stories. In the current arms race toward AGI, both between private sector labs and internationally between the US and China, there is immense pressure on everyone to go fast and cut corners on safety. And this incident last month with the Hugging Face hack points to that kind of vulnerability. Some of you may be familiar with gain-of-function research in virology. I think that offers an illustrative example. With gain-of-function research, virologists can make a virus in the lab a little bit more deadly, a little bit more contagious, in order to study how best to treat it or develop vaccines. Now, some biologists say the benefits of doing this outweigh the risks, so we should do it very, very carefully. Some other scientists say gain-of-function research on potential pandemic viruses is too dangerous, we should ban it altogether. But everyone agrees if you're going to do gain-of-function, it has to be at the highest levels of biosafety protocols, with the gloves and the masks and the hoods and the isolators, the whole setup. And if there were someone somewhere in the world doing gain-of-function research with no gloves, no mask, no hood, no isolators, just loosey-goosey vials on a lab bench somewhere, everyone would agree, even the proponents of gain-of-function would agree, that was grossly immoral because it would be imposing unreasonable risk on billions of innocent people with no say in that risk trade-off. In a similar way, AGI research is currently being undertaken without proper safeguards. I won't say there are no safeguards, but it's the equivalent of maybe just latex gloves and not the mask and the hood and the isolators as well. And the Catholic Church is uniquely positioned to be a moral voice for the billions of ordinary people subjected to that risk, who currently have no voice, no vote, and no say in risks imposed upon them by a very small number of tech CEOs and national leaders in the US and China. The subsidiarity principle in Catholic social teaching states that people need meaningful say in decisions that affect their lives. With regard to the AGI race, this means that they need meaningful democratic oversight over risk decisions that could bring great benefits, but could also cause terrible catastrophes. And they also need a say in how AI is deployed and who it benefits. If we survive this transition to AGI, if we avoid a mega pandemic virus scenario, the benefits will be tremendous. In medicine, for example, curing cancer and Alzheimer's, and letting people live not just longer lives, but freer, more vibrant, and more fulfilled, healthy lives. Also, AGI will unlock abundant energy and breakthroughs in material science and robotics that would unlock unprecedented material abundance, especially for poor people. Today, someone in Rwanda with a $16.50 smartphone can access the free tier of ChatGPT and use a smarter model than Elon Musk or Donald Trump, with all their wealth and power, could access just 363 days ago. So this is rapidly going from technology only available to the wealthy and powerful to even some of the poorest people in the entire world. Likewise, AI capabilities are getting exponentially cheaper. And this is happening faster than any technology in human history. And I'm not just saying that glibly as a rhetorical flourish. I've checked. From December 2024 to December 2025, OpenAI's best model got much, much smarter and fell in cost by 99.7%. We don't even really have a frame of reference for any other kind of technology deflating that fast. So I'll sketch out what that might be like in a more familiar field, car sales. Imagine that the 2024 Tesla Model 3 sedan retailed, as it actually did, for $40,630. And then the 2025 Model S, the better sedan, retailed for $105. That's the kind of deflation we are already seeing in AI. Now, these capabilities, combined with advanced, flexible humanoid robots coming in the next several years, will allow the automation of essentially all work not relying on inherently human relationships, or the cultural value we place on humans doing certain jobs. So, for example, you might instinctively think that the real work of a bartender is mixing a good martini. But robots, and you can check this on YouTube, can already prepare mixed drinks just as well as humans. What people really go to a great bartender for is the sense of human welcome and a listening ear, someone who is seeing me, maybe in a low moment, and can offer advice and human connection. So I don't think robots, even at the level of AGI, will replace bartenders anytime soon. Likewise, in the arts, player pianos have been able to play more virtuosic piano concertos than any anatomically normal human with 10 fingers could ever play. For more than 100 years, that's been the case. But we don't all get dressed up and pack into Carnegie Hall to watch a player piano play itself. Really, what we're doing when we go to a piano performance is appreciating the human skill and dedication and talent and artistry that goes into it. I think there are two potential responses to the future that AGI will bring about for employment shifts. Both are potentially consistent with Catholic social teaching. One is a rejection of widespread automation because people need dignified livelihoods and also need meaning and purpose. If people lose their jobs without a good plan for how to replace livelihood, meaning, and purpose, the outcome would be disastrous. But the second option is to embrace an orderly and safe transition to this future where much of the work that humans currently do can be automated. We'll need to think ambitiously about how then to prevent the harms. Many people assume that without jobs, people have no meaning, no purpose, and no livelihood. But we actually already have a very large cohort to look at who experience this exact life transition, and that is retirees. Yes, many retirees temporarily struggle with the identity shift that attends the end of a career. But most of them don't just fall to pieces. In fact, senior citizens are generally the happiest age group in America. Social Security and savings provides for their material needs, along with Medicare and other social services and civic activities. And as for meaning and purpose, what do? Seniors spend much of their time consuming art, of varying degrees of quality, admittedly, but art nonetheless. Many create art, engage in hobbies, and learn for the sake of learning. In many cultures, like in Italy, elders spend hours a day outdoors in public in meaningful, rich human conversation. And most importantly, seniors get to spend more time with family, loving and being loved. If we can steer toward that kind of future, I believe we can be much better off with AGI. And I would argue that the commoditization of functional intelligence would actually be very good for human dignity as well. Now, this already happened for physical strength. In the ancient and medieval worlds, the physical strength of men, at least, was a major determinant of their socioeconomic standing. Strong men were better at manual labor and could often be more effective as fighters. Then the Industrial Revolution came along and gave us the steam engine, electricity, and gasoline motors. Now, physical strength plays almost no role in a man's social status. In a few fields, like NFL players or Navy SEALs, there's still some effect from this, but basically no one else. Today, though, what we know and the functional tasks we can perform in our heads are pretty dominant in whether we live paycheck to paycheck or become multimillionaires, whether we live at the margins of society or are admired as its champions. This also affects our self-image. We would say it's bad to be proud of being born into a wealthy family, and relatively better to be proud of being a skilled software engineer or a clever lawyer. But to the extent that our sense of worth comes from those things, what does that say about someone with Down syndrome, or someone who's paralyzed, or sick, or elderly, or young, or unborn? If we can prevent AGI disasters, the promise then is a society that centers our relational capacities. Who am I as a son, or a husband, or a father, or a friend? How well do I love others? And ultimately, how can I be more aware of my fellow humans as reflecting the image of God? So with that, I welcome your questions. Thank you very much.